Welcome to the Red Pill Sports Entertainment Show. This is a morsel for UFC 254, Khabib versus Gaethje. So we're going to talk a little bit about this fight. There are some really good fights on this card. Whitaker Cannonier, that's a really interesting fight. Cannonier just has amazing power. He has that one punch knockout power. It just devastating. So he's actually fought as heavy as up into the heavyweight division, as well as light heavyweight division. He just super, and he was wrecking guys at heavyweight. It wasn't like he wasn't wrecking guys. He was wrecking guys at heavyweight, wrecked guys at light heavyweight. I mean, this guy has an amazing amount of power. It's going to be a very interesting matchup. I really am interested in watching that fight. Volkov and Harris. This should be a really interesting fight. Volkov has a really unique kind of kickboxing style. Very technical, very good. I mean, if he wouldn't have got over aggressive, a little overconfident, I feel, in that fifth round, leaving his chin exposed for just that moment in time, I don't think that, the Black Beast gets the title shot at Cormier. And I think we're talking about a very different heavyweight division as far as what matchups we would have seen by now or that we would be seeing here in the future, because he's a very technical fighter. He's very good. And Harris, of course, is also a great fighter. So really interesting matchups there. There's some other fights down the card that are also really interesting. So this has the makings to be a very fun and entertaining card. So let's talk a little bit about Khabib and Gaethje. Okay, I believe this is going to be the third title defense for Khabib, if I have my math right. Essentially, in my opinion, his real actual title fight was against Conor, in my opinion. Okay, I mean, no, I don't want to sound like I'm disrespecting El Iaquinta, but he wasn't the champ, okay? He definitely wasn't even considered a number one contender at the time he stepped in to fight Khabib when Khabib captured the title, right? So in all reality, even though this would be his third title defense, I really consider it more of his second title defense, because at the very least, Conor did at one time capture the 155-pound belt. And so I think that's when he actually captured the belt. In my opinion, that's how I see it. I know that's not how it goes down in the record books, but hey, tomato, tomato. Anyhow, that was his first, in my opinion, true fight towards fighting contenders or champions, however you want to see it. Next, he had Dustin Poirier. And then now he will be having Justin Gaethje. So one of the things people fail to realize sometimes is that, well, a guy's coming up, he can look really, really good. I think we saw this with Dominic Reyes not too long ago. He can look really, really good coming up, even challenging for the title, maybe even winning the title. And then maybe not be as dominant as a champion, okay? This is why I think that people are getting a little premature calling Khabib the GOAT and giving him a ton of praise, is that Khabib is essentially only on his second, and if you want to give it to him, his third title defense, okay? There's a much different thing between being the champion, okay, and being the contender, being the hunter, right? When you're the tiger, you got the eye of the tiger, right, and you're chasing the champion. It's a much different thing than when you are the champion and people are gunning for you. Okay, we talk about it in sports all the time. We talk about it, for instance, it's really prominent in NFL football, where from the previous year's Super Bowl contender, everybody gets up that plays them in the schedule, gets up for that game and gives them their 100% best effort, because somehow, even if your particular season isn't going well, or if you possibly lost to them the season before, right, there is some type of moral victory you take out of that you say, hey, we're going to get up, and if we can beat this team, that means we can play at the highest level, right? We've seen this with John Jones. We've seen it with Anderson Silva, right? The gap starts to close. It's not so much that they're so much of a different fighter or that their skills are declining. It's that they become the focus. There becomes more and more and more tape on their fighting style. Now, love him, hate him, love me, hate me. Here's the reality about Khabib. We have seen the exact same game plan for the majority of his UFC career. It's changed slightly. It's adapted slightly to the cage, but for the most part, it's the exact same game plan. Okay, he shoots a very non-explosive shot, just something to close the distance so that he can get his hands on you. As soon as he gets his hands on you, he holds on for dear life because for as far as we know, it is for his life because we don't know what else his game really has in it. He holds on for dear life. He drives you up against the cage, and then he uses the cage to help finish his takedowns. That is the Khabib game plan every single time. You'll notice that this is why he doesn't really care to be too offensive off of the cage. If his back is on the cage, he will always either try to circle to get off of the cage and get his opponent onto the cage before attacking, or he will look to exit as soon as possible, get back to the center of the octagon, and then get into the cage. Now, a lot of people will talk about his boxing, how great his boxing is. If we're going to be 100% honest, his boxing, I mean, who are we comparing it to? If we're comparing it to other MMA fighters, you know, it's adequate. If we're comparing it to actual boxers, it's trash, right? It is. I mean, if you watch this guy's boxing, if you watch him throw punches, naked punches, they're not the best. They're not coming from the best angle. The only reason why some of them land is because there is a threat of a takedown. They're not set up by like amazing footwork. They're not set up, you know, with great angles. It's not off of a nice slip or a bob and a weave and a pull and then he counters, right? That's not at all what he's doing. When he lands strikes, they're definitely coming from odd angles, and they're coming from odd angles because of the takedown, because he can drop his level and he doesn't have to pay for it in a boxing sense, because of course this is not boxing, it's MMA. So because of that, this is generally Khabib's game plan. Grab a hold of you, drive you to the cage, then use the cage for the takedown. That's his game plan. And that's fine. I'm not diminishing that he has a great dominant style. It's dominating. It's winning. I mean, it's no takeaway from GSP, who in my opinion is the actual GOAT, okay, that he had, a style that was, a ground and pound or a lay and pray, however you want to see it. He played to the strength of what the scorecards would do for him, right? He didn't take a lot of risk. He did things that other people just couldn't do. The difference between him and Khabib is his striking was much more evolved. He could stay on his feet with a striker and strike in a completely striking style. And he wasn't throwing, punches and kicks and stuff from weird angles. He did actually use footwork. He did actually use feints to get in, things of that nature. Those are things that Khabib doesn't really do. That's not part of his skill set that we've seen. Now, credit to Khabib, maybe he has those things, but there's just no need to have ever shown it. I'm just simply saying what he has shown, this is it, right? So, I think that we're going to see a much closer fight than most people think. Not just because Justin Gaethje is a wrestler, okay? Not just because of that. It's also because of the hyper focus the 155-pound division now has on Khabib. Personally, I think it's a little bit sad that Khabib, if he were to win this fight and one more, he's looking at retirement. I think it's a bit sad for and disappointing for MMA fans because I think, I don't think he owes it to any of us. Don't get me wrong. But I think that MMA fans are interested in seeing, well, now that you're at the top of the hill, now that you're the king of the hill, Can you defend the crown for a long amount of time? Now that you're the absolute focus, the focal point of the entire 155-pound division, can you withstand that pressure? So I think that now, with Justin Gaethje knowing that this is the pinnacle, this is the top of the hill, okay, with fighters upcoming knowing this is the guy to beat, okay, because he is climbing in the pound for pound rankings, right? I mean, it is what it is. I think that Justin Gaethje is going to have a great game plan to beat Khabib. I think they know more and more. You're hearing guys say what they know they need to do against Khabib. Conceptually, the idea to beat Khabib is now, how would you say, is now filtering through the 155-pound division. I cannot have my back against the cage. What we also see is he doesn't like getting hurt. Not that anybody enjoys getting hurt, but there are different fighters. They're okay with eating a punch. They're okay with eating a knee, an elbow, a kick, and they're going to shake it off and they're going to still move forward. That is not Khabib. Khabib does not like getting rocked. He does not handle it well. The times that he does get stunned, he gets a bit frantic, okay? He gets a bit frantic. He doesn't like it. So I think this is going to be a much closer fight than people think it's going to be. Now, the problem is that now we're talking a whole bunch about Dagestani wrestling versus U.S. wrestling. And people want to make it a style matchup. It's not a style matchup. Okay, let's first and foremost, we got to throw that misnomer out the window. Okay, it is not a style matchup. Okay, what the matchup is about is whether or not Khabib can get the takedown with the non-explosive type of takedowns, or and the grinding, slow control, get you to the cage, drive you to the cage, then trip you. Can he get him down with that style? Because that's what he's going to bring. At least that's what he's brought. And there's nothing to suggest that he's going to deviate from that, at least early in the fight. Now, maybe he goes to something later in the second, third round if it's being unsuccessful, okay? But he will not deviate from that plan going in. That's my opinion. That's what I see. From what I see out of Khabib is he's a lot like GSP in the sense that, hey, this works. I'm going to use it. I'm going to stay conservative. I'm going to stay in my comfort zone. Justin Gaethje, on the other hand, has had the benefit of taking a loss and learning from it, and going ahead and putting together a better game plan from that. I think he'll go forward. I think what he's going to try to do is, if you notice in some of the fights where Khabib was kicked towards the head and body area, a lot of people think that when you kick Khabib, that's a recipe for being taken down. That's not necessarily true. If you're kicking with nasty intent, okay, he is much less likely to shoot on that kick and try to catch that kick. Like I said, he does not necessarily like the idea of taking damage. He's smart in that way, okay? He's smart in that way. People think that this is somehow talking bad about Khabib. It's not. It's a smart strategy. Why am I going to put myself in harm's way and give you, quote unquote, the puncher's chance by trying to time and catch a nasty intended kick when I can simply slip back, scoot back out of range, or check the kick, or block the kick and cleanly block the kick, wait till you reset, move around, wait till my opportunity comes, close the distance, grab a hold of you, drive you to the cage. That's what he does. Now, I don't mean to make it sound like he's fluffy like a teddy bear and, he's not strong. He obviously is a strong man. He obviously, when he grabs a hold of something, really hard to pry it free. But it's not impossible. If people watch a lot of Khabib's older fights before people started to over respect his wrestling, he looked beatable. He looked like a guy that was a typical ground and pound style fighter, that he needed this takedown. He did go backwards at times. He did have holes in his game. He did leave his chin out sometimes. He did do things that were ill advised at times just to reset the action in order to avoid getting hit, right? He's done those things. And I think that's where Justin Gaethje is going to present problems to Khabib. Even in fighting Dustin Poirier, I really thought Dustin had a shot given the way that he likes to strike typically. He typically strikes in bunches, in 2, 3, 4 punch combinations. He generally, fights in a rhythm. He's not trying to knock you out. He likes to pepper you with punches. He likes to hit you with volume. And I thought that was a style that he was going to bring in against Khabib. I think he made a big mistake. I think his camp made a huge mistake in advising him. It looked like he was looking to snipe Khabib. I really feel like a sniper style striker, if they don't land, right, it's so high risk reward against Khabib. Some guys it's not, right? There are some guys out there that it's not super high risk reward. With a guy like Khabib, it is. If you try to snipe and you don't pull the trigger and you miss the window, he's closing the distance and grab a hold of you, and your strike is basically squashed, right? Your strike is completely muffled. There's no power left. There's no power to generate. He's too close. He's smothering your strikes. So it's high risk, high reward. The risk is that he's going to either follow your strike in, which generally he doesn't do, or as he moves around, if you don't pull the trigger, if he lulls you to sleep and you don't pull the trigger on that small window he gives you, right, like a sniper tries to do, because you're just that overly concerned whether or not he's going to shoot, that's when he's going to get going ahead and close that distance. Khabib doesn't have to shoot and change levels like a lot of other ground and pound guys do, right? He doesn't have to change his levels, get down, take a shot, add a single. He doesn't have to do that. Khabib will pretty much actually kind of just smash chest to chest on you, and so that he can get some type of body lock on you, get some kind of arm control on you, get some type of collar tie on you. He doesn't have to grab a hold of your legs to start with to get you down to the ground. All he needs to do is grab a hold of your body in order to drive you to the cage. That's it. So where I think Justin is going to give him problems, and the reason why I think this is going to be a close fight, is because Justin, I don't think is going to change his style. I think Trevor Whitman is an amazing cornerman. I think he's a really good coach. I think he's really adapted his style of striking to MMA. And I think what they're going to do is they're going to say, hey, look, our style makes problems for Khabib. Why? Because we go forward. We don't have to counter punch. Okay? We can lead. We know how to lead the dance. We're going to lead the dance. We're going to go forward. We're going to strike in volume. We're not going to strike wildly, but we're going to strike in volume. When you're lax, right? When you're lax, that's when Khabib tries to shoot, okay? He doesn't catch guys off of strikes or in the middle of strikes or ducking under, okay? That's not really the way that Khabib takes guys down. I think that if Gaethje can just do a tiny bit of damage in that first round, I don't think he has to do a ton of damage, just some. and keep it standing, if he can keep it standing for at least 3 minutes in that first round, and if they hit the floor, get back to his feet, I know that's a lot easier said than done, at least one time, I think it changes the complexion of this fight because Khabib is a confidence driven fighter. If you notice in any of his fights, when he does have flashes of mortality in a fight, it's because he loses some kind of confidence. He's moving backwards. He's not asserting himself. As soon as he starts to gain confidence, he takes control again. He gets calm again, and then he starts to be methodical again. But if you make it frantic for him in any way, if you rattle him in any way, it changes his style of fight. I don't see that for Justin Gaethje. Okay, I just don't. I really feel like if there's going to be an early stoppage, it'll be from the Justin Gaethje side. I think if it goes to a decision that does favor Khabib, but I don't think Khabib is out of the woods just because it goes late rounds. Honestly, I see Gaethje having more ways to be able to win this fight because of stylistically how they match up. And so that brings me to my prediction. I'm going to go out on a limb here, and I'm going to say that Justin Gaethje stops Khabib about the fourth round via TKO. It will shock the world. It will absolutely shock the world. And people are going to say a lot of the same things that they said with Ronda Rousey. How did we not see these things before? Okay? And that doesn't mean that Khabib's a bad fighter, guys. It doesn't mean I don't like Khabib. I just think stylistically, this is a bad matchup for him. I think a volume puncher with power and good wrestling understanding, okay, is going to be a problem for him. So that's what I got, guys. I'm going to put out something else regardless about Khabib coming up on, I believe, Monday. So hopefully that'll be out. Just kind of my take. And it's more not so much about Khabib, but the media surrounding Khabib and all the fans surrounding Khabib, right? I really feel like there's just way too much quickness, regardless if he beats Gaethje on Saturday or not. There's just way too much talk around Khabib, surrounding Khabib, about how he's the GOAT. I just think it's so premature given that this is his third title defense, right? This is his third title defense. I mean, let him at least make it to 30-0 and have 5 title defenses before we lay GOAT at his feet. And I think really it comes down to fans, well, you know what? We'll save that until we do the segment on Monday's show. All right, guys. Remember, be practical, be purposeful. Thanks for listening. If you liked the video, share, like. If you didn't like the video, oh well, comment down below. Let's argue about it. All right, man. We'll catch you all later. Have a great day. Enjoy the fight.
Name a thing that you can't do. Jumping jacks, run a mile, live past 42. Man, it used to be cool to just flip a bird to the system, and now it's trendy to be triggered and pretend you're a victim. It's my race, it's my weight, it's because I'm a Christian. I hate the internet and anyone who has an opinion. And everybody angry if you say white. Okay, fine. Pass me the brush and I'll paint my face to the shades right. Let's talk about abortion. Sorry, tell me how this works. Bacteria is life on Mars, but a heartbeat isn't life on Earth? Weird.